I will tell you why you don't need to worry about Lane Kiffin in Florida just yet, because this football team can win the whole enchilada.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network now. It's the #1 sports podcast network in America. That's because of you. Thank you very much for that. On today's show, we will go over the lines and locks for Week 13 in the SEC, brought to you by FanDuel, as we hunt for the most intriguing matchups of the board. Then we take a closer look at what we learned from Ole Miss's big win over the weekend against the Florida Gators and what lessons we can carry forward into one of the most anticipated games of the year, the battle for the Golden Egg. We'll also break down what's still within reach for this Ole Miss team. A national championship? Yeah, that's absolutely possible. An SEC title game appearance? It'll take a little help, but it's not out of the question as well. This is the best time potentially ever to be an Ole Miss fan. The energy is high, the atmosphere is electric, and it is fun everywhere you look. But there are these Lane Kiffin to Florida rumors that could blow everything up. This is why we need to probably just wait on those rumors just a little bit. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. A special hello to our insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so we just finished a very, very weird week. The Lane Kiffin to Florida week last week was off the charts weird. And the local podcast and the internet chatter around Lane Kiffin was all about, hey, on Sunday at 2:00, something's going to get signed. Have your phone ready to go. All of this blew up over the weekend. Then on Sunday morning, the same person that started all of that said, my bad. That's not going to happen. This is going to happen at a little bit later date, and the dominoes are going to start rolling right now. And everybody was talking about, hey, according to my sources, after the Egg Bowl is when it's going to happen. So everybody's going to pay attention to after the Egg Bowl. And the whole premise of this is that Lane Kiffin is not going to coach the playoffs. He's going to go ahead and go to Florida. And that logically makes zero sense, okay? So that is where everything blew up a week ago about the Florida Gators and Lane Kiffin. And know this, okay? If Lane Kiffin sold out this football team before a playoff run, it would destroy every bit of goodwill that every dollar in his contract would buy. It would kill his relationship with the University of Mississippi, with the people of Oxford, with the college football community as a whole, and take him right back to that Tennessee coach from 2009. Lane Kiffin is not going to take a job until the last zero hits the clock on this season, whether it's the national championship or otherwise, okay? He's just not. He's not going to put himself in a position to destroy all of that goodwill right now. And for the Ole Miss fans that are like, hey, we've got to put an ultimatum on him and find out what he's going to do. Well, even if he wants and intends to go to Florida, he's probably going to lie about it to you so that he can coach the playoffs. And he should, if we're going to be completely honest. Yes, Ole Miss fans and Florida fans want this over as quickly as possible, but that is not possible because of the first thing that I talked about. And the reality of this is this football team can win the national championship. Now, it needs some help. It needs things to line up for them in the bracket. It needs to avoid certain teams in the bracket to where you have a one shot to get them. And you want other teams to kind of take care of that. Like, for instance, if Ohio State and Georgia play each other in the semifinals, you probably want to be on the other side of that bracket and kind of get the winner of that game. That is all in front of Ole Miss in this college football playoff cycle. Ole Miss has a game in the battle for the Golden Egg, and it is a must-win game. Absolutely the biggest game in Ole Miss history. Next Saturday in Starkville, the battle for the Golden Egg. And the reason for that is what it means. Again, the opponent does not matter. The next game is the most important thing. Getting to 11-1 and potentially playing in the SEC championship game. If that happens, we will tell you the scenarios of that in just a second. Playing for a seeding for the biggest college football game that has ever taken place in the state of Mississippi. That is on the table as well. If Ole Miss gets a 5, 6, 7, or 8 seed, there's going to be a game in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Going to be absolutely massive. This is the best time ever for Ole Miss fans. Period. You do not have it better than right now. So you need to, in my opinion, focus on this playoff because you don't know when it's going to happen again, if it's going to happen again, what's going to happen. The end of January, who knows what that's going to look like. You need to be in position to maximize this season as much as you can. And if next season nothing changes, bonus. Awesome. Fantastic. When you look at this football team, they can beat anybody in the country, period. They can be in a situation to where they beat Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Georgia. Heck, they were a 4th and 2 missed tackle away from being 11-0 right now and being ranked 1 or 2 in the entire freaking country. And that was with the defense not playing well that day. They just got the scheme wrong. It was after that game that they said, hey, we need to start going back to our roots. And all of a sudden the Oklahoma game happened, the South Carolina game happened, the Citadel game happened, the Florida game happened, to where you're giving up like 300 yards per game and next to no rushing yards as well. The front seven is doing a fantastic job. The weak link of this team appears to be the secondary. But that is the reason you don't pay attention to the rumors around Lane Kiffin, because he's not going to leave until the clock hits 0 on the last game that Ole Miss plays. Not saying that he's going to go, but no decision will be made until that time. And if you try to put an ultimatum on him, it's like before the Egg Bowl or after the Egg Bowl, whatever, we have to know right then. He's just going to lie because he wants to coach that game. If he's going to go, okay. If he signs the contract, that just means the buyout's going to be about the same anyway, and he can go at that point as well. So don't worry about it. This is not a football coach that is coaching like he has one foot out of the door. This is not a coaching staff that is coaching like they have one foot out the door. This is not a team that is playing like a team that their coach has one foot out the door. They're locked in. They're doing what you want as an Ole Miss fan. Lane Kiffin coached his butt off against the Florida Gators. And I get the trolling the fan base and all of this extra stuff, and people get exhausted by it and they just want it over. I get that 100%. I'm going through that just like everybody else is. But if you just go by actions and take the man at his word, because you can be selective in dealing with Lane Kiffin. Take him at his word. When he says he hasn't even thought about that and we're not going to deal with that until the season's over, he probably means it. When he is on the field coaching his butt off like he did against the Florida Gators to get that win, how much it meant to him, take it at its word. He is coaching like a coach that is desperately trying to win a national championship at Ole Miss, which is exactly why he gets paid the big bucks to start with. I'm going to be impressed as if Ole Miss goes in, wins the game, win by 1 point. Style points don't matter anymore. 1 point gets you potentially a bye in the college football playoff. Win the game by 1 point, go 11-1, and then let the Iron Bowl and the Lone Star Showdown happen to find out what's going to be the SEC championship game participants. And look, part of me would be welcoming an SEC championship game appearance just so I don't hear the jokes anymore. But if it doesn't happen, you're still going to be okay, and you're going to have a game on December 19th or 20th. Or maybe if you had the bye, you'll be playing on New Year's Day in the Sugar Bowl or something like that. This team can win everything. Everything going into the battle for the Golden Egg is at their fingertips. And that is an unbelievably cool thing. And it's all because of what happened against the Florida Gators over the weekend, with Ole Miss going to 10-1, beating Florida 34-24. You know, it's really interesting stuff to see what's going on. So let's look about that game and figure out what we learned from that game. What do we need to carry forward into the battle of the Golden Egg? What are the questions after that game? All of that is coming up next. You know, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It helps keep every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bet when that first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it keeps all of this for free. Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's coming in December. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in America. We couldn't do it without you. Now, Ole Miss beat Florida 34-24 on Saturday, and other than being a load of fun, because I always enjoy it when Ole Miss beats Florida, I think the all-time series record right now that's evened up like 13-13 between the two schools. Whenever they start talking about how much of a better place it is, the all-time series is tied up now. You have a situation to where, what did you learn from that game? Because that was a big game. That was the game, honestly, that Ole Miss over its history has lost. And that was the game that essentially got Ole Miss in the playoff. If you look at playoff predictors on The Athletic, Ole Miss is 96% to go to the playoff. If it's on go to ESPN, they're 87% to go to the playoff. They're almost there. They're right on the cusp of making the college football playoff. And a lot of that has to come from that Florida game. What do we learn? Kiwan Lacey might be the best running back in the entire country. I'm dead serious on that. Kiwan Lacey is special. He is a transfer from Mizzou. He is very good in short yardage, and that is amazing. He's amazing, and he started to break the long runs. It kind of started with the Oklahoma game, and you just saw him hit another gear to where he was breaking long runs against Oklahoma, South Carolina, now against Florida, against Mississippi State that just gave up 300 yards to Ahmad Hardy. I'm expecting Kiwan Lacey to have a significant role, and the fact that Ole Miss has a bye week this weekend is probably a good thing. He probably needs the rest. Number two, the defense dominated in the second half after a very shaky first half and honestly a shaky second quarter, if we're going to be completely honest. The front seven completely took over the game. Florida could not make anything work for them. Ole Miss took over that game. You had the pick where Suntarine Perkins deflected a pass. It was picked off by Wyatt Williams, and Ole Miss at that point kind of just took over. And it was really cool to see exactly how it looked, but the defense kind of taking control of this team in that situation was good to see, because I've seen this Ole Miss team in my lifetime in games just like that, in situations just like that, get really tight, including in 2024 in Gainesville. They got tight. They were supposed to make the playoffs. They knew they couldn't lose, and they got tight at the end of the game, and they weren't able to, maximize that effort. Now Ole Miss is 10-1 with Mississippi State coming up next. Mississippi State can score the ball. You want it to be, honestly, Kamario Taylor rather than Blake Shapen. And I think Blake Shapen will probably end up starting in the game, but Kamario Taylor is not as accomplished as a passer. So it's going to be a lot of QB runs. You might go back to the Florida game, what they did with DJ Lagway. The quarterback run game will be an important thing for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We'll obviously talk about that over the next 10 days or so. And also, this is the best Ole Miss football team in my lifetime. Enjoy this, because just like we said on the reaction show, you don't know when this is going to come around again. This is that season. Next year is here. This is the season that you need to pay attention to and not ruin it with rumors from the other side. If you can handle that, if you can do that, you will probably be in pretty good shape. That is what I got out of it. Now, Kiwan Lacey ran for 224 yards on 31 carries, had 3 touchdowns on the game. And honestly, he could have had 5, because Ole Miss just quit handing him the ball a couple of times inside the tight red zone. You got the feeling that Kiwan was going to score eventually, but for whatever reason, they just took him out and didn't do that. Trinidad Chambliss, though, he has quietly had a very, very elite season. This is somebody that did not hardly play the first 2 games, but he's 195 of 299, 26-57, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. DeSean Stribling looked really good in the game. Chambliss was 26 of 35, 301 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. The interception was pretty bad, but the touchdown was pretty good to see. It was interesting. It was interesting. In our final segment, we look ahead to week 13 and start digging for some leans and locks. Where am I leaning? What has grabbed my attention? All of that next. College football is back, and I could not be much more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw some amazing deals. Now, I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. Honestly, it's faster and cheaper and less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. This is a busy week on the schedule, even though the games might not be that great, honestly, if we're going to be real about it. But it is a busy week with 10 SEC teams, 10 SEC games on the slate. It starts with Samford at Texas A&M. Samford's like a 1-10 team going into Texas A&M. That's going to be a massive blowout. I expect Texas A&M to go to 11-0 with just the Lone Star Showdown left to go. Then you have Missouri at Oklahoma. Listen, Missouri has a true freshman quarterback. Oklahoma has Brent Venables. Oklahoma is playing very good ball right now, especially defensively. And Brent Venables is going to eat alive a freshman quarterback, I do believe. Ahmad Hardy is going to have to get loose, and Missouri is going to have to stay on schedule, because if you can't do that, Oklahoma gets you in third and long, and it's absolutely over. It's interesting to see. Oklahoma's favored by 8.5 points in that game. Charlotte at Georgia. Georgia's favored by 42.5. After that game against Texas and before Georgia Tech, I think that's way too many points, if we're going to be honest. The game's at 11:45 Central on the SEC Network. I expect Georgia to take their feet off the gas and get ready for that Georgia Tech game. But Charlotte should be interesting at least, but they are definitely catching Georgia in the trap game position. Mercer is at Auburn. It's at 1 o'clock on the SEC Network Plus, and it's a no-line game. Auburn's going to win that game. They're going to run the football. Jeremiah Cobb's going to have a pretty good day as it sits. Eastern Illinois is at Alabama. It's another no-line game, 1 o'clock Central, SEC Network Plus. Not necessarily a get-right game because it's an FCS game, but it is important for Alabama to kind of work on the running game, because their running game is not something that is very good at the moment. And once you get down to Jordan Hare, it could get weird. We'll see how it goes. One of my favorite rivalries in all of college football, probably not going to matter too much this year. You have Arkansas at Texas. Texas is favored by 9.5 points. It is at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC. Listen, Arkansas, just the law of averages says they have to win one of these close games eventually. Have to. It seems like they lose by one possession every single week. And this Arkansas team going against this Texas team, it could be weird. The Texas defense going to get, it's strength versus strength and weakness versus weakness in this game. I think Texas has what it takes there. I think the lock of the game is Texas by more than 10. So give me the Longhorns on that. The game of the weekend, if we're going to be completely honest, the game of the week in the SEC is Kentucky at Vanderbilt. And the reason I say that, Vanderbilt has to win their last 2 games for a chance to make the college football playoff. They win each of their last 2 games, they'll be 10-2, and they'll at least be in the discussion as number 13 or number 12 or number 11, wherever they are. Kentucky got their 5th win against Tennessee Tech over the weekend, and they're playing for a bowl game against Vanderbilt and Louisville. The last 3 weeks, Cutter Boley has looked pretty much phenomenal. This should be a fun game. Kentucky and Vanderbilt, set your dial. It's at 2 o'clock, 2:30 Central Time on ESPN. You have Coastal Carolina at South Carolina. South Carolina is favored by 23.5 points. Man, South Carolina is finding new torturous ways to lose football games seemingly every week. It's at 3:15 Central Time on the SEC Network. Lenore Sellers, Coastal Carolina, the boys from Myrtle Beach coming into Columbia. If South Carolina can play like they did against in the first half against Texas A&M, they've got a real shot. If they play like they did in the second half, they're going to get beat by Coastal Carolina. So this is a game that I say stay away from, if we can be honest. Tennessee is favored by 3.5 points at Florida. The game is at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC. Until Tennessee can win a game in Gainesville, I am going to assume that they can't. The last time Tennessee won in Gainesville was 2003. Eli Manning was still running around quarterback, and that was the 2003 season where Eli Manning got a victory in the Swamp. That's the last time that Tennessee won in that as well. I think that's 11 straight games or something like that. Tennessee, though, is favored by 3.5 points, but this probably isn't the first time that they've been favored. It'll be interesting. If Tennessee can kind of get up on them, maybe Florida will quit. They did have a great effort against the Ole Miss Rebels on Saturday. We'll see exactly how that goes. And finally, LSU's favored by 24 points. It's on the SEC Network at 8:30 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Western Kentucky is there as well. Does LSU get the win? Do they do what they have to do? I think this would be their 8th win or something like that. This is pretty big, and this big for Ole Miss, for LSU and Oklahoma and those guys to keep winning each and every single day. Because when you look at what we're dealing with, these are the tiebreaker scenarios for the Southeastern Conference for Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Georgia, and Alabama. And for Ole Miss, it's simple. You need Texas A&M and Alabama to lose. You need Auburn to win on the Plains. You need Texas A&M to lose in Austin. And you need to beat Mississippi State. If those 3 things happen, you are going to find yourself playing in Atlanta. This is per Cole Kublik. Really interesting stuff. Thank you very much for tuning in. And thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. As part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.